to our Event Insight Series webinars. My name is Eric Missick, joined by Joe Colangelo of Bear Analytics. We took a summer break there, hiatus, but we're back full steam ahead as we get into the fall time period, and we're glad to have you all back with us. And we're joined by a special guest today, Emily Larson from McKinley Advisors. She's going to be helping us with the theme of strategizing your way to event success. And who doesn't need that as we lead into fall events? Joe's going to lead today's discussion, but before we jump in, please, if you have any questions throughout the discussion, Emily says the nugget, you want to learn more, Joe says something insightful, and you want to know what he actually means, put the questions in the chat. Put the questions in the chat. Put it in the comment box. We'll get to them through today's discussion, and you know, I'll be there to interject and make sure we get to any questions that you have and get those answered for you. So with that, we'll turn it over to Joe. Start it up.
Yeah, thanks. Good to be back, Eric. Good to be back in the seat. You're going to be chief interjector today, which we're excited about. As he goes off camera in a very shady way. Emily, welcome. We're excited to have you here today. Let's kick things off, though, by introducing you to the group. Tell us a little bit about yourself and about McKinley.
Yeah, so my name is Emily Larson. I am a senior marketing consultant with McKinley Advisors. I have been doing this for almost 9 years. So my day-to-day is spent helping association leaders create marketing strategies for their entire product and service portfolio. So that includes meetings and conferences. We do a lot of things around membership, product development, go-to-market strategies, things like that. McKinley as a whole, we focus on strategy and innovation, everything from strategic planning to product innovation, like I said. We do some organizational excellence work, so anything around governance or DE&I or making sure that your teams are as effective as possible. We have a research and insights arm that does a lot of market research, survey deployment, development, interviews, so both qualitative and quantitative. And then we do some just general business planning, revenue optimization, dues modeling, all that stuff. So pretty much anything that has to do with an association, our firm will touch somehow. Right now we have about 40 staff and we are based in DC, but have people all over the country.
That's a big theme going on right now, people with people all over. So let's dig right into it with what we're seeing in the marketplace now. So when we first, just for those when we first looked at this kind of session and what we wanted to cover, we knew that marketing plus strategy was a hot topic area way back pre-summer. Now we've all lived a lot of life in the last kind of 3 to 4 months. Help us, kind of benchmark and understand, what does the playbook look like from the specifically kind of the event marketer's lens here in the last quarter, and as we kind of round out Q3 heading into Q4.
Yeah, so I think, as we all know, things have really changed over the last couple of years. So there is no standard playbook, but there are definitely a few things that we're seeing across the board with all of our events, whether they're small 100-person conferences up to the 40, 50,000 people trade shows. And that is a major shift into digital. So making sure that you are meeting your attendees where they are. Like you said, people are not just in their office like they used to be. They're traveling more, they're working from all over the world, and so you need to make sure that you're reaching them, which typically means no more postal, which I know shakes the boots of a lot of associations that have been doing it for so long, but it's just not converting like it used to anymore. So why not take that budget and put it in other places? Email is still king, but the way that people engage with email, we're starting to see a shift. So thinking about the new privacy policies that Apple rolled out, how do we get around those, for lack of a better term? Looking at Google Analytics and how they're changing and the shift to GA4 next year. So really focusing on how can we be most effective through our emails, knowing that those metrics that we used to look at like open rate are not accurate anymore, because your iPhone users, many times they're tracking as multiple opens per email, which of course skews your metrics. Or we're having bots, security systems, things like that, open or click the email before it even reaches someone's inbox. So looking at your, oh, these many people open the email or this many people click the email doesn't work now. So you need to make sure you have tracking on the back end, you're using an analytics platform. And then I think the last—
Can I just unpack that for a second? Because I think that's a huge nugget that frankly we faced ourselves. You go out, you put some A/B testing into the field, you look at your emails, and all of a sudden high fives across the board on the analytics side, because and I think what Emily just said there, for those of you that haven't experienced this yet, is you're going to get inflated open and click-through rates. It's going to look like your email's performing better up until the point of conversion.
Yeah.
And the reason for that is, I think, twofold, and help me to unpack this, but you're going to have bots, security bots, that are opening emails, and then they're clicking on the links to make sure that they're not nefarious links. And so it's human mimicking that's being done by a machine that's never going to take any more action after that. Is that correct?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And unfortunately, the major email service providers have not figured out a way to determine what is bot traffic and what is human traffic at this point. So we're still kind of stuck until they catch up. And one day, hopefully soon, someone will figure out how to determine that on the back end. But right now, you have to use that conversion data and make sure that you have, like I said, the right tracking set up outside of the email platform.
Which conversion data being like the harder of the metrics anyway. So in some regards, you're kind of being forced to galvanize towards what actually matters at the end of the day, no matter what. But I didn't mean to distract that conversation that you were kind of going off on.
Right. I think you can look at conversion data in a few different ways, though, as well. So conversion just doesn't have to be that be all end all. You know, they've given you their credit card number and they've paid to attend. It can be they, spent 3 minutes on our website looking around, and we can count that as a conversion for a mid-step to an attendee acquisition. So now we have this group of folks who we know are engaging. They may not have registered. So let's nurture them and give them what they need and what they want, and have a conversation with them to then get them to ultimately convert into a paid registrant. So having those kind of touch points along the way in your funnel, and looking at success, not just as, how many butts and seats, but are we getting folks kind of coming on the journey with us? I think this is important too, as we look at kind of travel restrictions, funding, things like that. In today's world, growing your lists and adding new audiences is just as important as getting folks in the door, because people are waiting to register, right? They're waiting to register.
Now we're getting to it.
Last minute, their office says, oh, you can't go. 4 people have COVID right now. We need you to stay. And so you need to have those names so that you can then invite them for future years, or to a webinar, or give them content. Of course, the revenue for registrants is
sure
important, but you have to have all those steps in between.
So your last point there was a really interesting one, because as we look at the data, across clients on our platform, we're realizing that one of the, perhaps, I don't know if you want to call it kind of, maybe shadow trends coming out of the pandemic, was for folks that didn't have a meaningful, meaning kind of like full-sized event in 2020 or 21, or perhaps both years, or perhaps in the beginning of 22, whatever the cases may be, there was a of inability or a depressed ability to bring in first-time registrants. And that turned into being such a huge top of funnel builder that was just kind of naturally happening. And if you want to think about it from like an annualized event standpoint, that didn't really happen at the same level or at all. And so when you have your lists kind of churning out, people moving jobs, people moving roles, people moving industries, but there's nothing gap filling it at the top, we started seeing there being a real shadow in their reach. And that doesn't materialize until you send that first email and you get all those bounce backs, right? And so maybe talk a little bit about kind of, one, you're nodding your head, so I'm assuming you kind of agree with that, but if not, tell me where I'm wrong, or if so, tell me, maybe there's some of the tactics and tricks that you use to kind of, navigate around that.
Yeah, so totally agree. I think there used to be this school of thought in conference and meeting marketing that your promotional cycles were your abstract or program submission and your registration. And so if you have a conference in January, your registration is, September to January, you're doing abstracts August, September. But what's happening from, February until July? So having a nurture campaign set up where you are engaging and touching those contacts who have either maybe attended, maybe not attended, maybe they've engaged virtually if you have a hybrid meeting, and giving them resources throughout so that you stay top of mind as the go-to source for information. This could be, like I said, webinars. You could put out a session and let people watch a certain session. If there was a really important piece of data, so for scientific meetings, like a new scientific breakthrough, share that out. But just, you have to stay in front of them because they'll forget about you if you're not.
So I'm going to ask oh, sorry, we got a question. And Eric, go right ahead, please.
So it looks like you spurned a question here talking about the, re-engaging with folks. So question is about our loyal core. So we had a loyal core of attendees pre-pandemic that we knew. How do we re-engage them now?
Having a conversation with them. Marketing does not have to be a one-way street. It does not have to be the register for a meeting, register for a meeting, register for a meeting. Here's why. If you have a loyal core, pick a few of them and make a phone call. See, what are you seeing? What are you hearing? Do you want to volunteer? This is a great job for interns as well, we always say. Get them on the phone, talk to your members and figure out what they want and what they need, especially if it's the loyal core that is not attending now. So you have to figure out where that disconnect is and what they need that you aren't providing. Given the current environment, it may just be a funding issue. And in that case, we've seen a lot of groups go to a hybrid meeting. So folks who may not be able to attend in person anymore, who have attended the last 15 years, give them a virtual option to engage. Let them still be with the content, present the content, things like that, but meet them where they're at. Like I said, don't just assume that they're going to attend because they've always attended.
So I want to go back. No, that's a great point. I want to go back to the point you kind of made earlier about that timeline of things kick off in the August-September timeframe. Tech systems are opening. You're doing these kickoff meetings, and then after the event, there's kind of this like lull period. And what often kind of chimes in as we think about more of a 365 communication, two-way listening and speaking campaign, pushing out content in the, let's call it the off season, for lack of a better term. We hear we don't have enough time. We've never done it that way. We're marketing other things at that time. So maybe speak to a little bit of either the technology enablement, the process enablement to help reduce that OpEx. How do you get folks there so that it becomes doable in a very crowded, I think, kind of work day or work environment?
Yeah. I think this is where marketing email automation can play a huge role. For a chunk of effort in one block of time, you can set up emails to touch people, say once a month for those 6 months. So you spend half a day, you block off your day, and you get all your emails programmed with resources, get your campaign set up in your email service provider, and then click go. And then you don't have to worry about it except for kind of checking in on the metrics, make sure things are going the way they're supposed to be going. Of course, keep an eye on your unsubscribe rates, but let it kind of run itself. So finding ways to both optimize the lift on the marketing teams. I think the other big thing is figuring out what you already have that you can recycle. So associations have so much content. Use a journal article and share that, or pull your headlines from your magazine and use that as a touch point. Hey, we published this really great article this month that related back to XYZ topic that we all heard in January. Take a look and give it to people for free. It does not have to be super in-depth, heavy lift things. Most of the time you already have stuff that you can use to give away, or as a touch point, or as an inroads. I know, Joe, you mentioned, multiple events. And so, okay, we're not promoting for our annual because we have the smaller conference that we're now promoting for. So how do you not cannibalize that event and still make sure it's successful while keeping annual top of mind? I think secondary calls to action in your emails are a great way to do this. So say you're emailing registration reminder for event 2, at the bottom you could have can't attend event 2, click here to sign up for emails for annual, and we'll let you know when registration opens. Now, of course, you still want your primary call to action to be for that second conference, but there's nothing that says you can't touch both.
And I think maybe that's where, it takes that next level strategy or thought, because they used to be, I suspect, if I'm making broad strokes, kind of assumptions, we have our event 1 or annual kind of campaign, we have our event 2 campaign, they're discrete units of start and stop, and the overlap became really tough. But if I'm hearing what you're saying, it's now is the time to kind of blend those things, have these concentric circles overlap, and effectively get 2 emails for the price of 1 in the example you just gave.
Exactly. I think as staff, we are always looking at, okay, right now my focus is on this project for this conference. Okay, this conference is over. Now I need to move on to the next thing. But if we think like our members, they look at the suite of offerings as part of their member benefits. So yes, they're discrete events, but they see it all as part of the association's value. And so if we put ourselves in their shoes, it's fine to say, hey, we have this event, can't do this, go to annual. Because those things are connected, even though we might be thinking, I got to do this, and then this, and then this. It's all muddy now.
So if I'm trying to go next level, I think you gave us a great baseline on the goals and expectations for email. What comes next from a channel tool set standpoint in, the way you, and I understand it might be, personalized based on kind of the use case and what the organization is trying to do, but in general, once we've gotten email into a really great spot, we're working really solidly on the automation front, where do you take it from there?
Retargeting is my next step. So making sure that we have cookies installed on the websites or wherever you're directing traffic from your email. For Google Ads, Meta, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, and that you are cookieing visitors so that you can then show them ads about your meeting as they're browsing the internet. Google does a really great job with this, where somebody comes, you can set up the time limit and say, show us or show them this ad about annual for the next 120 days. And so that if someone has visited your site from an email, they're going to keep getting reminded as they're, shopping for shoes on Nordstrom. They're seeing Association X conference, register today. So I think retargeting to then do digital ad campaigns, kind of hand in hand with that a lot of groups don't think about is search ads as well. So making sure that you have keywords, both for your conference, but all of your competitors' conferences as well, in Google, so that as people are searching, if they search for, anesthesiology conference, you want that to be top of line showing up in Google, whether it's an ad or just a listing. Most general day-to-day users do not realize that those first couple listings on a Google page are ads. And so they don't view it as an ad like they would a banner ad or a big LinkedIn takeover chat message, things like that. So it's a great way to get in front of your folks and make sure that they're actually seeing when they search that you are top of mind.
I feel like half the first page of Google is ads now anyway. They're really just like, you got to
Right.
get there. You got to pay to play. Yeah, you got to pay to play.
I think, not to sound like a Google promoter at this point, but the Google grants program for nonprofits allows associations to get free money for search advertising.
Let's back that up again. You're backing up the free truck. So let's pause. Look at everybody in the camera. Anyone who's listening, now's the time to chime in. That's a nugget right there.
Google ads for nonprofits for a Google grant. The process to get approved is a little tricky. You have to, fill out an application, provide documentation. But if you're a 501c3, you can get up to $12,000 of free advertising through Google every month. There are restrictions on what you can use it for, but if you're sharing content related to a conference, you're allowed to.
Yeah, that's some great advice. And it sounds like, from the way you were kind of describing it at first, is maybe perhaps an underutilized tool set. So when you're going into kind of a new client or a new relationship, they may not be taking advantage of not just the grants, but kind of just the overall tool set from a retargeting standpoint behind it.
Absolutely. So going back to our conversation about email, so often it's, we send an email and then we're going to wait until we send another email. Or, we sent an email and like maybe we put a house ad in our magazine that members get monthly. So filling in that space in between, and the digital ads is a great way to do that. And you can
So what about the timing on that?
Oh,
sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, so timing. So I like to get retargeting ads set up as soon as that first email goes. If possible, keep the cookies installed on your event pages year round, so that even people who are visiting in the quote unquote off season can still then see your ads once you start running them. It doesn't hurt to keep them on the back end. It doesn't do anything. They just keep collecting names. And then keep those ads running right up until your conference. Because even if people aren't registering for this year, we want them to remember that the conference is happening, so that maybe next year they can plan ahead, or get the justification that they need for their boss to get registration fees paid for. But it's not going to happen if they don't know that you're there. So you just have to be in front of them.
So what about the science of the ad, or the art and the science of the ad? I'm kind of using science as a loose term there. There's obviously a finite piece of real estate. You can put the year, the dates. What are kind of your best practices, or what do you see from an efficiency standpoint on what those retargeting ads should contain, maybe at a bare minimum, and then what you've seen that's really worked well?
I think at the very basic level is having a button graphic on the ad that says register, or register today, or register now, so that that button triggers people to click. If it's just, a graphic of an attendee presenting at a meeting with your logo at the top and the conference dates, that doesn't entice me to click on it. So just like you would, put a button in your email for people to register as a best practice, have a button on the ad, which is not something we think about. But again, if we put ourselves in our members' or non-members' shoes and think, oh, duh, they're going to want to click a button. I think people-based imagery or location-based imagery works best depending on your audience. So if you have a group that really views attending your conference as a vacation, they bring their families, location really matters, it's a party plus a conference, use location-based images, play that up in those ads so that somebody sees a flashy picture of San Diego and this like register now call to action, and they're like, ooh, I want to go to the beach, click. Or people-based imagery. If your conference is really focused on networking, use images of your people at the meeting in your ads. Of course, get permission from the people, especially if you're putting them out on Google where they can appear across the web. But definitely use any data you have from your attendees, whether you've gathered in post-conference surveys or just one-on-one conversations when you're at the meeting. Why are you here? what drew you to the meeting, and then use that to your advantage.
And what is the strategy about rotating ads in? Do we keep them in if they're working? Is there a, every 4 weeks, let's change it out, let's keep it fresh? What are you seeing in that front?
So typical marketing response, it's all about testing. So I like to start with, let's say like 3 location-based ads, 3 people-based ads with the same text and calls to action, same sizes, so size A, size B, size C, and then test them against each other. See what's working, give it 2-3 weeks, and then maybe adjust your spend for the ones that are working better versus the ones that are not working as well. Facebook does this for you automatically. You can optimize ads based on traffic, so you don't even have to go in and tell it. It will just automatically show the ads through the Facebook retargeting platform based on who's engaging and how.
That's awesome. That's like nugget number 2. You're just firing them at us today. I appreciate it. All right, we got 4 minutes left. We're going to use the next 2. I want to get just kind of closing thoughts, putting your forecaster hat on. We're rounding out 2022 is just ridiculous as that sounds to say out loud. Where do you think events in 23 go from here, where there's been some research in the marketplace to say that, maybe the live events industry is kind of hitting a little bit of a ceiling, relative to what we saw in 2018 and 2019. From where you're sitting right now, what do you think 23 looks like?
So 3 things come to mind. I think first and foremost, hybrid meetings are here to stay. Associations are unique to, say, a HubSpot or a Cisco, where most of our audience are engaged members who are already paying dues to be part of the organization. So they're more likely to attend in person versus like a technology conference, for example. So I think we're seeing growth across the board. So figuring out how to capture that growth and make sure, like I said, that you are giving folks what they want, but in a hybrid form. So that could be a few different ways to do it. You could have a virtual aspect of your meeting happening at the same exact time as an on-site version. You could have your on-site meeting and then 2 weeks later have a virtual component, or you can have an on-site meeting and then after the fact, just share broadcasts of sessions that happened in person, and maybe have your speakers log on to answer questions, things like that, even if it's a pre-recorded session. But figuring out, again, how to deliver that value, and hybrid seems to be the best way to do it. And you can scale hybrid in many different directions. I know staff capacity and time is always a big concern with hybrid, so making sure you're doing that.
I think it's a big concern in general across the board, but yeah, particularly in the use case that you're talking about, absolutely.
Yeah. And then I think the other big thing is just a focus on digital. Like I said, really making sure people are on their phones, they're on their computers all day, more now than ever as they're working in different locations. So keeping up with the trends in digital, making sure that you are leveraging the tools available to you as a nonprofit, like the Google Grants program that I mentioned. I know Canva has a nonprofits program too. So if you need to spin up some quick graphics, you don't want to pay, get a free Canva license.
And it's unbelievable what those tools can do now. It's really unbelievable.
They'll even publish for you directly from the tool. So figure out your MarTech stack and ways to make it stronger, and really lean into that over the next year as we figure out.
That's the next webinar. Figure out your MarTech stack. You just said it right there. We can go. That webinar is only going to be 8 hours long though.
I was going to say, we can spend a couple days chatting about that.
Yeah. It's like a made-for-TV series, maybe.
Coming to
probably
Netflix.
Narrated by Tom Hanks. No big deal.
Fine.
Well, Emily, thank you very much. This has been absolutely great. We want to also thank our sponsors, Cadmium, Shepherd, District Marketing Group, EVA, and of course, Trade Show University. We're going to be back here just about every Wednesday into the winter. I mean, I think we're back, right, Eric? We're back.
We're back. Yeah, we're totally 100% back. We got some good topics coming up, and we'll see you next week.
Yeah. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks so
Thanks,
much.
everybody.
Thanks, Emily. Really appreciate it. Thanks
Okay.
a lot.
Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.